Alright, so now we're going to go in and we're going to add some sparks, and we're going to emit off of the chopper and off of some of the previous emitters, and this is just going to add a lot more interest. Obviously there's sparks and all sorts of explosions, and you can take them as far as you want, but we're going to just do a couple of quick setups, and that's just going to add a little bit of interest to our explosion. So to start, we're going to add in our second bit of the explosion here, we're going to add a emitter, and we're going to make this a volume emitter, and we're going to burst these up from the middle of the chopper itself. So let's add a separate nucleus to this, create a new solver, and let's call this sparks emitter, and we're going to make this a volume emitter. And let's just create this. And let's just create this a sphere and put it roughly in the middle of where our explosion is going to be. Just in the middle here. And we're just going to blow it out in kind of a circle. So let's make this a sphere. Turn on wireframe. We're going to put this, we're going to blast this out away from the center. Start with a value of 100. And as well as we're going to shoot it up, give it some force up and some force in negative Y. And this again, just so it's not completely radial and uniform, we're just going to push it in one direction a little bit. So let's push this in 0.5 in Z. And now let's give it a directional speed as well of 100. And let's just randomize the direction a bit. Alright, so let's just parent this to our chopper. Constrain parent. And let's just name these sparks. And now our nucleus here, I'm going to start this at frame 80 just for a second explosion. Now let's just see what we get here. Okay. So let's key the emission on and off. Let's go to our emitter here. And let's key it for, let's have it on for 4 frames. And let's do a lot more of a rate here. 4,000. And let's key it off. Frame 85. So it's just a blast. Perfect. So as well, since we're parented to the chopper, let's put a little inherit factor on the particles. So let's go to the inherit factor and let's put 0.5 is probably going to be a lot, so let's just test this out. Yeah, maybe just a little bit, 0.1. This will just help it move in the direction just a touch. Okay, great. So another thing I'm going to do is I'm going to increase the gravity of our nucleus here, and I just want them to shoot up real fast and then kind of fall down quite quickly just before they die off in lifespan. And you just got to kind of play around to what looks best and what looks kind of more natural. So let's try 50. And according to your scale, it's all whatever looks best. So let's try 50 for that. Now let's just go in and adjust some of our particle settings. So in our sparks, let's do a random range of the lifespan. And say 1.1 lifespan with a random range of 0.4. So it's going to be a maximum of 1.5 seconds. And that'll be about 35 frames or so. And also, let's just play a couple frames here. So we're going to make these tubes. And this is going to be really easy to shade and render these if we render them as tubes. We don't need to render them with motion blur, which can be a little bit more complicated, rendering these as spheres and adding motion blur, and it's a lot more time consuming. So we don't have to render with motion blur. We can just add these or create tubes. And there we got some streaks. Let's just make these really small. 0.15 and a tail size. It's all based on velocity, so let's just try this for now. There we go. And these are going to render a ton faster. So that's good for this emitter. So now let's create the emission off of these debris particles here. So we'll select the particles and go emit from object. And let's have this on nucleus 4. Sparks particle emitter, let's call this. And let's have the rate 500, a bit less, and a really low speed with a high random range. So we almost don't want any speed to come off the particles. We want it to make as if this debris source is just emitting particles with no velocity, and they're just going to drop with gravity. So let's just delete the new particles. And let's add in the sparks to our new emitter. And let's just take a look here. Yeah, so that looks pretty good. That's kind of what I was hoping for. Now I'm just going to, I'd say the highest stage of the velocity, where the particles are just starting to die down in velocity quite a bit, I'm going to key off the entire emission just so it doesn't keep emitting until the end. So let's key it off at about frame 92. So let's go to frame 91. Let's key the emission rate at 500. And let's key it off at 92 just so we make sure that we're not emitting for the whole lifespan. And there we go. So now in the next clip, we're going to go in and we're going to do a similar particle setup for the initial explosion. So we'll see you in the next clip.